I see students all the time who just say, I'm just starting out. I want to get my feet wet in this industry, the bookkeeping industry first. And I'm not ready to settle on a niche.
I love bookkeeping.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast. I'm Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Melissa Honan.
And we are your new co-hosts. Today, we're going to be tackling something that is talked about a lot among the bookkeeping industry, and that is to niche or not to niche. First of all, Melissa, I think the most important thing with this subject is, do you pronounce it niche or niche? Because that seems to be the biggest controversy. I pronounce it niche.
Okay, I feel like niche is the correct way to pronounce it. But I am American and I typically will revert to niche and then hate myself immediately after I call it that. I don't think that there's a wrong way. It's like tomato or tomato, although tomato is definitely not the right way to say it.
Exactly. I always call it niche. And when I hear people say niche, I get like insecure about it because I think, well, am I pronouncing this wrong? Regardless, today we are going to be tackling the pros and cons of picking a niche, whatever you want to call it, to niche or not to niche. So first of all, I see a lot of our students in our communities, and I think when people are starting out, this is such a big question because they don't want to settle for something that they don't like. So obviously, Melissa, you work with a specific industry. What have you found are kind of the pros of having a niche?
That is a great question. I kind of want to circle back actually to your first statement, though, that people don't want to work with something that they don't like. Funnily is not a word. Funny enough, I did not choose our niche. Our niche was chosen by Daniel, my husband, who used to own a painting business. And I am not particularly passionate about painters. So I think that is a pro, that you do get to work with something that you're passionate about, but you don't necessarily have to be passionate about your niche to be successful.
Right.
I think the biggest thing is to become an expert in that field, which I've definitely become. I have dove headfirst into the painting industry, and I can honestly say that there is no other company in the world that could serve painting businesses in the way that we do for bookkeeping and tax services. But that is something that I consistently struggle with, is that I'm not necessarily passionate about it. Where I get passionate now is my actual clients and getting to meet people face to face, and then supporting my team members to be the best that we can be.
Well, and I think there's something to be said for the fact that if you do have a niche, you get almost a customer loyalty when you're kind of an expert within your industry. I think people really appreciate it when you kind of hone in on something that's specific to an industry and you really become well versed in it. I think there's a lot of loyalty, especially among, I think when industry leaders get together. For example, if you served doctors' offices, if you're a bookkeeper for the medical field or small family practice, I think people are going to get together and share that they've found somebody who's really an expert in bookkeeping for a certain niche, and it kind of creates a sense of loyalty, I feel like. Have you found that to be true?
Definitely. And I think, like, in particular for us is that, we did own a painting business up until about June of this year. And so when I go to industry events, which, we're going to talk about networking, in another episode and what that looks like. And when I go to those events, I always kind of feel like a shark in the waters, right? Because I'm a vendor. I'm not a painter. I'm just here to sell you on things, which really isn't how I am, but that's how I feel sometimes. But when I actually get to have a conversation a little bit more in depth with other painting business owners, and I can tell them, hey, we used to own a painting company, So I really do understand what you're going through. I immediately earn her trust. And so even though I'm not necessarily passionate about painting, what's funny is that I find other painting business owners that are not necessarily passionate about painting either. And so then it's one of those things where we're passionate about being business owners and we're passionate about having, providing a great service or, having a great team environment. And it doesn't have to actually be the work that they're doing. And so I think just staying true to yourself, having a niche and then connecting with that niche is really the most important thing. I think it makes it easier because when you don't have a niche, who is your audience? Who is your ideal customer? How can you connect with everybody? You cannot connect with everybody. And so I feel like when you niche, you can really understand them better and offer them solutions to their problems because you can really understand their problems.
Yeah. Well, and I think something you just said that was really profound was you're passionate about being an excellent service provider. And I think that's something extremely profound that no matter kind of what you choose, if it's something that you're not super passionate about or something that you don't know a whole lot about, I think you can get to know the industry and really become kind of an industry leader if you settle on a niche. Because just like you said, you're not super passionate about painting, but now you've become a really well-respected name within that industry. And I think that's such a big pro to becoming an expert and picking a niche. And I feel like I should get $1 every time I say the word niche in this episode, honestly.
Now I will say I have this. So I think I always think about, because like a lot of the people that we're talking about, a lot of our listeners are just starting off. So yes. I have to say, I was not passionate at the beginning, but my passion has grown over time. I've had my business for 6 years now. And am I passionate about the painting industry now? Like, yes, because I know them and I care about them and I want them to succeed. Right. And I was actually just at an event almost 2 weeks ago now. And I was talking to a painting business owner, and he really wanted to start a gutter division. And everyone at the table was trying to convince him not to do it. And I have to be honest, I have never seen such a well-run painting business. I have never come across it. And he paid himself an extremely great salary and had 18% net profit and was just well-run, had happy employees. Like literally I have never seen on paper, but also just from his anecdotes, heard a better painting company. But what he said was he basically felt like it couldn't get better. And I had to almost agree with him. I'm like, no, I've literally never seen a better run painting company with like better financials in my life. So it's one of those things where in that particular instance, I had to tell him, like, you do have to follow your passion, right? Like, and if that is gutters now, then you need to follow your passion to gutters. So I think it's really personal, right? Because for anybody else, if they were to tell me they had, say, a $2.5 million painting company and they felt like they peaked, I would be like, no, there's no way you've peaked. I know $10 million, $12 million, $15 million painting companies. Your financials aren't where they are. Your profit's not where it is. Your gross profit needs work. You're not done. Yeah. Right. But for him, maybe he is. Maybe that's the culmination of what he does in that business because he feels complete. So I think the big thing here when it comes to niche or not to niche is I'm going to tell you that you need to niche, but I've met quite a few students where it was actually better for them not to niche. And at the end of the day, any advice that I give you, I am not a doctor. I am not a lawyer. I am some random person with absolutely no educational credentials. I need to throw that in there. But I have a high school diploma, guys. I did not go to college. Well, actually, I went to probably 3 or 4 different colleges and realized I don't want to be here. And I've still built a $1.4 million bookkeeping firm that is growing. So if I can do it, you definitely can do it. But at the same time, my advice is not universal. So I think it's really going to be, a margin of error here on what would work best for you.
Today's show is brought to you by Keeper, the one app to run your bookkeeping business. Keeper helps you get faster client responses with your own custom branded QuickBooks integrated client portal. Finally, you can say goodbye to those pesky spreadsheets full of uncategorized transactions. Keeper also helps you catch those embarrassing coding errors before your clients do. And with Keeper, you can generate beautiful custom reports that your clients will absolutely love to read. To find out more, go to keeper.app. That's keeper.app. Mention I Love Bookkeeping to get 20% off your first 3 months. Again, go to keeper.app to find out more. Thank you for listening. Well, and I think I agree with, it's a very personal thing. I see students all the time who just say, I'm just starting out. I want to get my feet wet in this industry, the bookkeeping industry first. And I'm not ready to settle on a niche or kind of hone in and become an expert. And do you ever think, when you first started bookkeeping, because I know Daniel was the one who initially started it, but what do you kind of on the flip side, what do you think some of the pros would be for not picking a niche?
Oh man, that's so hard. I mean, you do have the wider options for, client potential. Obviously, when we focused in on painters, there's 50,000 painting businesses in the United States. And we thought, for sure, that's good. If we get 10% of them, that's 500 clients, right? That's endless. Now, if you don't niche, how many small businesses are there in the United States? That is now your client potential. You're definitely opening the door there. And I will say, what you had mentioned earlier about students that aren't ready to niche, I have seen a lot of success in people that did not niche until they did, because by not niching, they were able to work with, say, dentist office, painters, hairstylists, and then realize that they had a passion for working with midwives, and now they're going to niche in midwives. And so just because you decide not to niche doesn't mean that you won't ever decide to settle down and niche later. On the flip side, you could always niche and then expand. And so, again, as an example, we did start with painters. And for the first couple of years, we would have other niches come to us like roofers, electricians. And I'd always be like, yeah, let's just get whatever. We need money. And Daniel would be like, no, we are an expert. We only work with painters. We will not work with anybody else. But in 2019, it was just, a new year. And I finally said, no, we're going to service all trades. And so you don't necessarily have to be in a box either way.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something that if you're new to bookkeeping and you're just starting out, I think people can really get caught up in kind of the logistics in the stress of making a decision. And that's kind of the beauty of it. You really don't have, you can pick a niche and then decide, okay, I want to expand on this, or you don't have to. And then you can one day change your mind. And just like you said, kind of settle down and become an expert in an industry that you find that maybe not necessarily that you're passionate about. But what's so great.
I will say I've seen oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say what I find so amazing is that I have talked to several of our students who are now business owners who have completely changed industries. They were once, I remember talking to a student he was a contractor and he was in the construction industry. And now that's the industry that he serves because he already has that knowledge. And so sometimes I think when you switch industries, or if you have some expertise in a certain subject, that it can become, you can kind of already have one foot in the door with a certain industry. And I think that can really help your marketing game as well, because you really understand who you're working with and what they need and how you can be a great service provider to them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I have seen several student experiences where they did that and they built a business and then decided that they didn't like the business that they built and just started over. Um, what's the worst that could happen, right? Like you can build a business and you're not stuck with it. You can always change it. And I think that is a really hard thing, like you said, is that kind of analysis paralysis. Like, what if I, pick the wrong project management software? What if I pick the wrong niche? What if I build this hideous website? Look, guys, I had the most hideous website for the first like 4 years. I did not put any kind of investment or time into our website until we were already at $1 million. You can always change your website. You can always just get it done, get it out there. My number one advice anytime someone in BL family is like, hey, I don't know what niche to choose. Look, write a bunch of niches down on a piece of paper, put it in a hat, pick a niche out of the hat, and then just become an expert. You don't necessarily have to be passionate about it, but if you have analysis paralysis and you won't actually start your business because you don't want to mess up potentially in the future, no, just pick one and go. Or if you can't choose a niche and that idea terrifies you, then just don't pick a niche, but still just get it done, right? The biggest thing is taking the first step. I really do think that people should niche though. So it's funny you asked me like, what are the pros of niching? I think or what are the pros of not to niche? I think you're gonna have to go over those because I disagree with every single one.
Well, and when I was kind of doing the research for this episode, I was looking in our community and seeing what different opinions and what different students had to say about it. And I think the general consensus is that people want to niche. I think kind of, but what I see a ton of and what you just said is analysis paralysis. And I absolutely love that saying because it's so true. I think people get hung up on thinking they're going to make a wrong decision. And for some reason they have to stop and start over, or they have to start over on the client front or start over with their marketing. And I think that just like you said, it's kind of one of those things that you can learn as you go. Because I think regardless, if you're starting a business from scratch, you're going to learn as you go anyways. So you might as well just roll with the punches and make mistakes if you have to and just learn from them. But, when I look at people who don't settle on a niche, one thing that they really have to their advantage is just a higher rate, I guess, of opt-ins and leads when it comes to their marketing, and just more exposure and more money. At the end of the day, that's what people are here to. They want to make money. And I think because I'm not a bookkeeping business owner. So I can't give personal experience, but I think the general consensus among people who don't want to niche, it's money. It's a big drive for that is kind of more clients, more money.
Yeah. So I have to disagree about that. So, yes, you might have a higher percentage of opt-ins and leads, but are they quality leads? Are they qualified? Are they your ideal client? Do you even know who your ideal client is if you're not niching? If you have a wide range of industries that you are serving, how can you become an expert in all of those industries? How can you be efficient when you're working on their books? If you are a one-man shop and you're actually doing the bookkeeping for all of those different businesses, every single time that you switch QuickBooks Online files, you have to switch files in your brain that says, I was just working on a service industry and now I'm working on a restaurant that has inventory. There is a lot more room for inefficiency when you're serving different types of audiences. So although you're saying there's more potential for money, there might not be. It might actually be a lower dollar per hour if it's going to take you a certain amount of time to switch industries in your brain if you're doing it yourself. Even then, if you have contractors or if you have employees doing it, you are going to have that same inefficiency in your employees or subcontractors as well, unless you have multiple subcontractors doing different types of industries. And then in that sense, you're going to have a higher overhead cost because the amount of time it takes to manage more people that are managing your different industries. So I think that it's actually more complicated, and you could potentially have, less dollar per hour if you have to spread your attention. One of my favorite sayings is that I don't work for exposure. That's more among entrepreneurs where people try to get their services for free. Like, if you could bake me this cake, I'll post it on Instagram and you'll get exposure. Yeah. Exposure doesn't pay the bills. So I always say true. More exposure is not necessarily better because, again, then you're going to have more leads that aren't necessarily qualified and more people that might not necessarily respect you and what you do. So again, if you're trying to please everybody, first of all, you won't. And so if you're trying to, get, business that's actually going to be quality business that respects you and pays you for your time, I really feel like you need to niche in order to do that. Now, if you have been successful in not niching, and you feel like you are completely successful in a bookkeeping or tax firm that does not, I'll say in a bookkeeping firm that does not niche, go ahead and send your financial reports to my email, and we'll go ahead and have a separate conversation about that. And I'd love to learn your ways. That's me kind of being a dick. But I always say that if people say that they're successful, go ahead and let's have a conversation about it. I would love to hear about it, but you need to show me your financial reports first, because I think that's the one thing, and we'll talk about this in another episode, is when we're talking about income potential and money and profit percentage, it's really hard to have that conversation without those numbers. So I guarantee that there are people that are successful that have not niched. And I am serious when I say I want to hear about it. So please reach out to us. I'm sure we have an email that we plug to get that information, and we can do a follow-up. I think we're going to need to have a follow-up episode of this where you come and you tell us how you were successful in not niching, because I just went, I guess, the easier route and I niched, but I'd love to hear, the successful stories of the students.
Yes. And we are going to circle back to this topic. And with that being said, we want to hear from you, niche or not to niche. Tell us why. Shoot us an email at success@ilovebookkeeping.com. Next time, we're really going to be diving into kind of money, and talking about pricing, why you should raise your prices, and how to do that. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Melissa Honan.
And thank you for listening to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that